Well, I'm excited to have you all here for this webinar on commanding your voice in the newsroom. It sounds, I think, a little more official than it really is, but we all do it. We all are leaders in our newsroom. My name is Amber Worthy. I work in Greenville, South Carolina, as a news reporter at the Fox affiliate. And I feel blessed to have been able to put this together. But these women made it what it is. So let's start with introductions of our president, Ms. Dorothy Tucker.
All right, so I'm Dorothy Tucker, president of the National Association of Black Journalists. Amber sent me an email a few weeks ago and said, hey, I would love to do something like this. And, I was like, yeah, done. Because I know it's a conversation that we have, especially in Black women in TV. It's conversations we have. It's conversations that I have with a lot of people. So I thought it makes sense for us to make this a broader conversation and include all of you. So thank you for taking some time out of your Saturday morning. So I was a journal assignment reporter for a very long time. I lose count of the years, but about 15 years ago, I started doing consumer news. So I would split my time between consumer and GA. And then about two and a half years ago, I went full time into the investigative unit. So I think my power, this is a question Amber wanted us to answer. I think, am I answering that now, Amber, or later?
Just introducing yourself, but you're the president. You can do whatever you want.
No. I'm gonna follow the rules. I'm gonna follow the rules. That's who I am. So that's who I am, and thank you.
We know you have a wealth of knowledge, so I'm ready to get into it too. Jasmine, can you introduce everyone to you?
Unmuted. Muted. That's like the catchphrase of the year. You're muted. My name is Jasmine Stiles. I'm a reporter anchor at ABC Action News in Tampa, Florida. I've been in the journalism game for almost 8.5 years. I think I'm the only person on the panel, not including our moderator, who's in the single digits. So I'm the baby here. I am from Orlando originally. Went to Florida State University, which does not have a J school, but God had his hand on me and made it happen regardless. So I'm blessed to be doing what I love and something that I'm good at, because speaking and spelling and writing are the only things I'm good at. So it all worked out for my greater good to be a journalist, and I just kind of learned on the fly. I think the one thing, kind of rolling into Amber's question, I think the one thing that you'll benefit from hearing from me in this panel is that I've messed up a lot. And I am now in therapy with a Black woman who has gotten my whole life together. And it not only helped me personally, but it helped me professionally. And I can see that the work that I'm doing, even in the 7 months I've been in therapy, has really helped me become a more tactful and a better leader than I thought I was when I was younger. And then when it comes to my strengths, if you wanted to know something from me, or if I was your go-to gal for something, it would definitely be live shots and ad-libbing. I can live shot and ad-lib like nobody's business. I was in Hurricane Harvey anchoring by myself for 4 hours straight in shifts. Everyone else had a co-anchor and I was by myself because they knew I can talk to a wall. So yeah, that's definitely my superpower in the reporting world.
Thank you for that. Brooke?
Hi, yeah, I'm Brook Thomas. Sorry, I think I lost my voice yesterday. I'm not even sure why or how. Great time for that. But I actually also work for the Fox Corporation. I work under a new entity that they are doing, a new network called Fox Soul. I work on a national news show called The Black Report. And I've been in this business, believe it or not, I think I'm still in the single digits too. I've been rounding up to 10 for since year 6. But I really think it's been about 9 years, actually. It just feels like a really long time. But I've worked in national news and syndicated shows, lots of local news all across the country. I started as an MMJ in Devils Lake, North Dakota at a bureau. So I was a bureau MMJ reporter. Yeah. And I think what I like about, just quickly, my show is that it's just the space that I've been able to be in where we normalize Blackness as if, our perspective is different. Black Americans, because of the history of this country, we're always going to have a different perspective, but we matter as Americans and we need to be spoken to. as Americans, and how do different things, different just news items, how do they specifically affect us? When we first started talking about coronavirus, how cool would it have been for also all of those stories to break down how this was likely going to disproportionately affect us? And of course it did. And then later we started picking up on that. But that's kind of what our show does, just kind of for the first time normalize blackness when it comes to American news. And I think my biggest skill would be also ad-libbing. Obviously, being a reporter for years and being an anchor, breaking news means, here's one line and then go. We'll see you in 20 minutes, So I would say that's my biggest skill set too.
Okay, I don't know that you announced. Did you announce that you were with Fox Soul? I don't think you did. I am
very quickly, like
Okay.
a month ago. I just started in September.
Okay.
But very quickly, it's like,
Congratulations.
this is my 50th job in this business. It gets a little, it's like, how like people don't really do baby showers after the third baby. It just
I'm
feels
sorry.
like,
Mm-mm.
hey guys, doing it again.
Well, I'm proud of you. That show, I've been admiring Fox Soul from a distance, because I was just like, oh my God, that is so unique. But congrats.
Thanks.
Amber, I didn't give my power thing. So when you're all done, I
Okay.
have mine. Okay.
Okay. Shalitha, you work for a station that is very, very dear to my heart. So Shalitha, introduce yourself to everyone.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Shalitha Hurrell. I am a producer at WSB-TV in Atlanta. This is actually my home, and I have been here for almost 10 years. I can't believe it, almost 10 years. So that's how I know Amber. I've been almost 20 years in the business. And what I believe, some other things I want to say. I am, which I absolutely love, am on our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force here at WSB, which is new for us. And so I was selected to be a part of that. And I'm also the treasurer for AABJ. So I want to make sure I say that. So what I believe is sort of like a superpower. 2020 is really just kind of taught me or reinvigorated this idea that your voice is so important, which is why I'm so grateful to be a part of this panel, because if anything 2020 has taught us is that our voices, just as Brook was saying, our voices, our unique way of thinking and telling a story is so important now more than ever. And so I just am excited about that.
Awesome. That voice piece is really the driving force for this. So, Ms. Tucker, you were about to talk about your strength for everyone.
I think my strength is a little different than everybody else's, but I think it adds something to the conversation. My strength is figuring out who are the decision makers, who are the power people in the newsroom, so that when I pitch a story, it increases the chances of that story making air. When I make a suggestion, it increases the chances of that suggestion being taken. So, I became years ago a leader in the newsroom because I looked at the political landscape and decided among the producers where was the power, who made the real decisions, and what do I have to do to make sure that what I want and what I need, what I think is best for the newsroom and best for the community, how do I make that happen?
And that flows right into the first question that you can pick up on. How do you pitch a story with authority? I think one of my fatal flaws early on was I pitched it with a question mark, like maybe this will be good, or maybe I think this might be. So how do you pitch with authority and to those important people?
You do your homework and your research before you pitch. You come to the table prepared, so that you may not tell them that. So when you pitch a story that says, hey, I think we should look at this and consider this because this is going on, you've already contacted the people who you want to interview. You already know what time is happening. you pretty much already have said to them, you know, I think we're gonna, I should be able to see you around 10:30. You think you're gonna be available around 10:30. You've already looked at the articles. You've already talked to a number of people. So the story is pretty much done. That way you guarantee success, because when you pitch it, you will then be able to execute on that story. And that gives you a reputation for being able to pitch and perform. The best way to pitch and perform is to prepare.
That was good.
You
You mentioned something in your introduction that I think goes with this, that tact piece that you learned. It took me a while to learn that too. So can you also add to this, how do you pitch with authority?
So I think sometimes we are so passionate about our stories that when people don't agree with it, or the big question is like, why does that matter? Like, why do I care? And you're like, well, you're supposed to care. You're supposed to care. That's not going to get you nowhere. Like, you have to say, okay, if we're doing a story about the Black community and, you know, how it's something is a detriment to them. It's like, well, you know, Black people make up, you know, 40% of this neighborhood that we're talking about. This is a big deal. If you're excluding 40% of these people in this decision-making process that's happening at city council, that's a big number of our viewers who are feeling alienated on this decision the mayor made, or whatever. Like Dorothy said, you really do have to be prepared, and you have to come with facts, not feelings. I will say sometimes there are abstract ways of pitching, because I think, at least for me, being a part of like the younger generation, especially with social media, I feel like social media is a bubble, but it is a good temperature check. And sometimes, like, it's weird to say this out loud, but like Black Twitter is a thing. Like, it is a thing. And there are people who will never be a part of Black Twitter because they don't fit the demo. And so you can't tell someone who has been on Twitter for, since like out of college, so 2012, like, and I have a decent following, like that, I'm not like that, this isn't real. Because I'm telling you that it is a trending topic, and there are ways that you can use like Twitter tools to back that up. And say this is trending within our demographic or when in this geographical bounds. So I think it's really important to be passionate, be persistent, but also, again, really backing your pitches up with.
I wanted to say that it's funny that you said you initially started pitching with a question mark. I feel like, have we all had that stage in life? Because that sounded so familiar to me. I completely struggled with that at the beginning of my career. I was terrified to do it. Every morning I had so much anxiety going into those meetings. We had to have 3 pitches, and it was horrifying. I would just like wait until the end. I don't know. And I think what changed was really a little bit of what Dorothy said, and also just changing how I viewed the job. It's not necessarily, okay, this is what you have to do. It's a numbers thing, come up with 3 things, and more so, you pay attention to what's going on around the world. You're naturally curious. Figure it out. Look at things that happen. And of course, like an easy example, I was in a much smaller market. We did stories that we wouldn't dream of doing now, but you see a terrible car wreck, and it's like, instead of going, wow, that may be a story or something like that, you know, obviously super bad example because it was a super, super small market and we did things like that, and that's okay. But I think that also built confidence, just changing how I saw what was going on in the world around me. And then you're better able to explain why this is important. So which kind of touches on both Dorothy and Jasmine's point, I think, really looking at what's happening around you in a different way, not necessarily as this is my job, this is what I have to do, but more, I'm naturally curious. I care about what's going on. I care about these stories. I think this deserves to be told, and this is why. So just kind of knowing it yourself.
Well, the other thing to add to that, like if the meeting starts at 9 o'clock, the editorial meeting starts at 9, at 8:15, I call Shalitha. I start early to get the producers on my side. And I say to Shalitha, hey, look, here's what I'm looking at. Here's what I'm thinking about it. The good thing about doing that is that I immediately get her reaction to it. I immediately get her feedback. And she says to me, yeah, and you know what, blah, 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 blah. But maybe, but what about, you know, so that again, she helps me shape the story. And I have buy-in really early really early. So at 9 o'clock when I pitch, you know, she's going, uh-huh, I like that. And the others just kind of fall right in line and say,
Right.
because Shalithas is the producer. So, you know, again, it's about just figuring out and being prepared.
That I was going to say, because I'm on the opposite side, so I'm the one you all are pitching to. So
Right.
having that conversation early, so you definitely have your producers on board. And also something I mentioned yesterday was just knowing the identity of your station. Because if you're coming with something that's super soft or, you know, super hard, and that's not the brand of your station, that will throw, you know, things in a little tailspin, and people will look at you, you know, your producers will look at the reporters like, okay, you know, do I have to do your job and my job and find you a story? So really understanding the identity and brand of your station, that will help you pick stories that you can pitch and that will get approved.
And that is, we laughed about that because we are pitching to you. So getting you on your side, on our side early is something that I don't know why it took me so long to learn that. Like I would say in the last 4 months is when I realized I was paying attention to what my surroundings, like Brooke mentioned, and really pitching stories that mattered. But then you come to those stories that you want to fight for, but then you realize, is this really worth that battle? So how do you pick your battles? Which stories do you fight for? Or how do you know if it's even worth fighting for? Miss Dorothy?
You know, that's a tough one for me. You know, in a little bit, it may be easier for you guys to answer because in my role, I pretty much know the newsroom, you know, and I kind of know who, you know, kind of what stories are going to work and which ones are not going to fly. But, you know, obviously there have been times when there's been pushback, and I tend to just really fight for those that are particular to the Black community. And so I choose to fight for those stories that, in my opinion, you, producer, who may not be white, may not be Black, you don't understand the significance of this. This is important to the Black community because, and again, those are the times when, if you have laid the groundwork that you will deliver, then they tend to back up and leave you alone, because that is the time that you can say, wait a minute, you don't understand. You know, you need to understand, and you need to realize that this is what Black people are saying. This is what they feel. This is what they think. This is an important story to the Black community.
And that kind of goes to one of the questions we got, even though we'll take a lot more questions at the end, but you laid the groundwork that you will deliver. So Jasmine, you spoke about something when we were talking about that fine line between fighting for everything Black, but not wanting to be the spokesperson for every Black person. So how do you pick those?
My catchphrase is something like Dr. Seuss. If you've ever read the Lorax, he goes, "I am the Lorax and I speak for the trees." And just because you are the Black person in the newsroom, you do not speak for all Black people. So you have to be very aware of the things that you think are universal and the things that you think may be very niche. Going to Dorothy's point, I actually learned this from NABJ Golden Child, Wesley Lowery. Sometimes your pitch is not ready. Sometimes when you initially pitch it, like the producers may be like, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about this," or like they have a lot of questions that you can't answer. But instead, I used to be really defensive when they would ask me those questions, like, why do we care? Or like, what about this? Or like, okay, well, that doesn't match up with that. And then I'd be like, well, no, but you don't understand. Da, 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 da. If you can't concisely pitch your story that hits all those points within like a 3-sentence span, then you don't have a story. It's not stable enough. So from going back to saying this is from Wesley Lowery, Wesley was talking on a panel, I think, and he was saying that he has a notebook full of pitches. Even if they don't work, keep them written down, because sometimes when you're doing work for other stories, you could find out things that attribute to that story. or even like I was saying in those questions that your producers are asking you, you go find that out. Just because it didn't work today doesn't mean it can't work tomorrow. So, you know, go back and say, all right, what am I missing? Or like, what would make this story rock solid? Is it body cam video? Is it stats? Is it a spreadsheet? I love a good spreadsheet. Me and numbers, I don't do math, but me and numbers have a grand old time. Because you want to be able to lay out the data that distinctly and clearly shows the disparity, the detriment, the conflict, like whatever that is, you want to have that rock solid and that it's not a maybe or a possibility. I think sometimes a lot of news stories rely on this could happen or this might happen. Like, no, like let's talk about like definitives. Like, why is this going to happen? What's the storyline? Like, what's the sequence of like events that have caused it to be like this and what happens next? You're always forwarding that story. So I think that's really how you decide kind of you know, what to fight for when you're pitching. Because sometimes maybe your story isn't good and it's okay. It ain't, every story ain't gonna be a slam dunk. Some of them days you're not gonna be the A block. Some of the days you're gonna be the fourth. Some of the days you're gonna be the kicker. It's okay. Like you don't have to be what's the girl from the Ninja Turtles, Mary Jane or whatever. Like you ain't got to be Gabrielle Union. You don't have to be the superstar every day. Sometimes you got a good puppy story and it is what it is. Like, and then some days you got stories about grieving families, like, and you knock it out of the park. It's okay.
Brooke.
I completely agree. I think sometimes you're wrong. And that kind of goes back to like Dorothy's point about having relationships, and especially when you're new in this at the station, especially, and it's always, that's why I started the group, the Black Women on TV, shout out to Facebook. But because sometimes we're the only person in the room. And so I wanted us to be able to have that space where you can reach out. But I remember being in Memphis, there's a woman, she's main anchor there. She's been there for decades, Merle Purvis. And she was kind of my person there, a true leader in the newsroom and someone that I could come to and say, that's kind of what helps you know how to fight your battles, because sometimes you're wrong. You know what I mean? Sometimes this is not a great story. Sometimes you feel great about it, but you're wrong. And so you need other producers, you need, someone who's been there longer, who can better understand the culture of your newsroom, what needs to change, what works, and what maybe needs to shift about your story if it's not being heard that way. But I want to touch on what you said about not wanting to be the spokesperson for Black people, because I actually would love to be the spokesperson for all Black people. That sounds like a dream job. It's just not logical, because Blackness is not a monolith, we all somehow seem to have all been raised by the same mother who always asked us whether we had McDonald's money when we wanted a treat. But other than that, we're all different. We move through this world differently. We come from different backgrounds. So it's not logical. No one can be, that's not how Blackness works. No one can be the spokesperson for all Black people. But I think part of it for me is just normalizing our culture in a way that other cultures are normalized, to where this story may not specifically touch on every single Black person in the world, but it matters to all of our viewers. And it's something that everyone should hear about and know about, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Shalitha?
Well, I was going to also add that it's important to have your allies. So important. So it's something that we've all kind of have been saying. It's so important to have your allies in the newsroom. So when you are pitching, I know as a producer, I do pitch story ideas. And so, and I have the opportunity to explain when there is a big something going on nationally, to say, okay, yeah, I don't speak for all Black people, but as a Black person on this phone call, in this morning meeting, I am speaking for Black people, and this is why, this is important. And then having that person who can say, yeah, and let me add my 2 cents, and this is why this is important. So having those allies to help, pitch, to help bring deeper depth to the story and explain why this is so important for your community, it just helps. It goes a long way. As Brooke was saying, get to know somebody who's been there, who can be on your side and who can say, yes, this is good, or this maybe the way you're presenting it is not the best. It's a great story, but maybe it just needs to be presented in a different way. So having those allies, and I'm a big support, I work at a station with several Black people, not a lot of Black producers, but several Black people. And so it kind of, is not as hard for us to, in Atlanta to get stories about our community presented on air. So yeah.
And I was about to say that because Atlanta, I think you are blessed to be able to have a little more leeway, but in those markets where it's not that many people, I would say find an ally within your newsroom if you can. But I have people who I can call who will be like, okay, this is good, but let's figure out how to pitch it for your bosses to understand. So I think finding allies outside of your newsroom, if you can't, like if you absolutely can't, but do your darndest to find one.
But Amber, sometimes the argument is that this is not a Black story. It's a story of a family. This is a story of a parent. And that's what you sometimes want to say to those producers. Let's take color out of this. This happens to be a story of a community that is doing XYZ. They happen to be Black, and you have to sometimes make them realize that when there is something that happens in a white community, nobody says it's a white story. It becomes something that happens in that community, and they think that story is important because they think the entire audience will be able to relate to that story that just happens to be in suburban XYZ. Well, that's the same argument that you make. It happens to be in the inner city, but this is a family that's going through this, this is their medical thing or whatever the story is. It is a story. And if that is a good story, then that is a story that will resonate with the entire audience. And, and that's the pitch that you make.
I think that's big. That's big. Go ahead, Jasmine.
I was gonna what's the word? I was like piggyback off of Madam President. There in news, there's always like universal pegs that your story should stand on. And at FAMU's J School, because I only minored there, so I can't say I'm like a full rattler. I'm like a baby rattler. But they taught us that you have, if your story is a stool, it should have 3 legs at least to stand on. And the things that like are always a pitch worthy would be like safety, health, uniqueness, what's some other ones, like strange, like there's certain like categories that your story should be able to stand on. And I will give kudos to my station because we are a very homogenous station in terms of there's not a lot of diversity. In front of the camera is better. We have no Black producers, period. So behind the scenes, there's nobody who looks like me.
Wow.
So, but I will say that my boss and Scripps does a great job at they know that and they're looking to figure it out. So like right before COVID hit, we were doing a project on having a diverse Rolodex and putting people in positions like expert positions that you wouldn't normally see. So that focuses heavily on people of color, women, religious differences, ableist differences, like whether you're able-bodied or handicapped. I don't know that was not the politically correct term. I apologize about that. I don't remember what it is. But it was like
disabled.
But I thought it's like there's another, they don't like to be, okay, I'm gonna figure that out. I'm gonna go to
I know what you're talking about. There's another term and I can't remember it right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up that and I'll tell y'all later. But it's about sometimes like not just making not white people the default. That's like the way that I kind of see it. Again, this is just the world we live in. White people are the default, from video games to movie characters to book characters to experts.
The sources,
and so I think even if they're not the crux of your story, even if you like try to put Black people, I know this kind of is not like honing your voice in the newsroom, but it does lend credibility. Like when you find an expert, I do try to like put Black experts and women and just other people in the spotlight, so that when other people are like, hey, I need a doctor, I'd be like, yo, I know this bomb doctor that we used at Advent Health. And she looked different. She was bald. She was Nigerian. She was just like nothing I'd ever seen before on television. And we used her, the actual PIO person, who was a former news person and is a white woman, said I pushed her to the forefront because we always use white guys. And so I was like, I appreciate you for doing that. And now I know that she's good, she's credible, she can speak on camera. And now I push her to the forefront when people have other medical stories. So I'm like, yo, use this lady, she's bomb. Or like,
that is so important. Like
the focus or like the personality of the story, sometimes pushing people that look like us in the expert realm is just as important.
And I think you called it a diverse Rolodex. Like we were going to the same doctor, same experts, just to keep it general, but we were going to the same people that I just was like, no, I don't want that. Like, I'll find somebody else.
I think it's something that a lot of stations are, you know, especially in the wake of 2020. I love that it was pre-pandemic, but especially because of 2020, a lot of stations are having to kind of, let's look at that Rolodex one more time, and let's make sure that we do have diverse experts, because, you know, everybody doesn't look alike. And so we have plenty of experts in this field, in that field, who, you know, are people of color, and let's make sure that we use them. Let's make sure that we search them out. So that's something that a lot of stations are having to do right now.
And
The advantage of us being virtual,
yes,
you know, is that we can use experts from outside of our area. You know, you just done before, you had to go and sit down with them, and they had to be in the city that you're in. Now, you know, it doesn't make a difference. So you can go, you know, you can go on the internet and you can just go to the Black Association of, you name the word, this is what I'm looking for. You know, try, you know, whether you want medical or whether you want law, whether you want health or whatever, you know, just put in, go to the university and put in Black professors who experts on this topic. Yeah, I mean, you know, so I do that all the time to make sure that I get somebody Black and, you know, pre-interview them, make sure that they're familiar with the topic, and, you know, put them on.
And Brooke, you said something earlier that really like hit home for me, and it went to something Madam President said about normalizing our community, that it's not just, it's a Black story, but normalizing, we just fit into this. Yeah. So can you talk about how, I guess, that plays a role in how you pitch?
Oh, you know, I work for Fox Soul now, so I don't really have to make that explicitly clear anymore. But I think before that, that's been like a breeze. That's nice. It's like everyone around me gets it. But I think, but it's really, I think Dorothy broke down what I meant by normalizing Blackness, how whiteness is the default here. And so no one says this is a white story. No one, and you're going to have people, they're going to say, this is a Black story, or this is a Black thing. That's actually okay. It's also an American thing. It's a whatever our market is thing. It's a Los Angeles thing. This matters. When Black people are disproportionately affected by COVID-19, that also still does affect the white people around them. Every story matters. We matter just the same. So I think just, I mean, sometimes that is just a battle, and some people just don't want to get it. And that's going to be frustrating, because you're going to have those moments and those people even in your newsroom, and some of those people are well-meaning. But, you know, I don't know if I have a really strong answer of how it would work every single time. I think just every story we do and every opportunity that we can take to get something on air that normalizes how things, sorry about that, affect us. That's part of like chipping away at this idea that this is a Black story or just a Black thing. Just constantly doing it more. Does that give you anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, just do it. I love that. But let's shift into this trust question. So we'll start with Shalitha. How, I guess, since it's unique for you, how did you start trusting these pitches? What about a pitch makes you trust it? Or trust the reporter too?
Trust the reporter, right. So it's something that Madam President hit on earlier, you know, building that relationship with reporter producer, right? So that helps. If I know that you are being consistent, you know, reporter being consistent, showing up, always, you know, having something, then I can trust you when you're pitching, that even if you don't have all of the elements right now, you're working on it. I can trust you because you've been consistent. Now, for those who, again, don't know the identity of the station, and then you keep pitching stories that really don't fit our brand. Like it's hard for me to even, when you open up your mouth, I'm suspect about what you're even saying, because you have, again, consistently shown that you don't get it. So really understanding that the importance of having that relationship, being consistent, that goes to the trust. And then, we've had people who've just been here for a while. And so they know community, and getting to know community is so important when you pitch the stories, because then I can say, oh, okay, yeah, it's going to work. It'll be great. So building that relationship with your producers, reporters, it's so important. It's so important, because then again, we do trust you when you open up your mouth. But for those who choose not to and choose to kind of do their own thing, once you start talking, it's like, okay, I got to do your job and mine, and it's so unfair. And why does this happen all the time?
Yeah. And Madam President, you can speak to this too. How did you get to the point where they trust you? Like, you just are a trusted reporter, and your pitches, they know they're solid. How did you get there?
I started early. I think it's important to always be the reporter who makes slot and fills time, because again, that's what the producers want. At the end of the day, what Shalita wants is that I don't have to come up with some theo somewhere to fill a minute and a half that I thought you were going to do. So what I always did was, if that story, I never said, I don't have a story. Very, very seldom is why I say, I don't have a story. What I might say is that the story that we talked about this morning, that we all in the meeting talked about, that story is not doable, but here's what I have. Or we can't do that story the way we talked about in the morning meeting, but here's what I can give you. They don't hear anything else after I say, here's what I have and here's what I can give you. They don't care most of the time what the rest of that is, because here's the bottom line. They have a show to fill, and I'm going to give you a story to put in there. And again, because I come and I'm a good reporter, they know it's going to be a good story. And my name is on it, my face is on it, so I am going to deliver something. So when you go in to that, that first year, that second year, when you come to that station and you're new, and you look around and you see reporters who are going, well, I got all the way out here and nothing's happening. I can't do that, and there's no story here. Just try and not be that person. Try when you get out there and they, and it's hard, and sometimes you are going to get out there and literally, if it was supposed to be a rally and nobody show up, what are you going to do? If you get out there and it's not as big as it was going to be, you look around and you go, okay, let's see, if I talk to you and I go over here and I pull this together, I can get you something. I can pull you something. Now, that's not a story you're going to put on your reel. That ain't the story you're putting on your reel. But that's the story about building that strong base. So when you do that, and you have that reputation for coming through, and for not, Shalitha doesn't have to do your job.
Yeah.
She has to do your job for you. Then when you come up and you make that pitch next time, she's inclined to say, okay, good, you can do what you need to do.
She knows you're going to make it happen. But Jasmine, because I really wanted to come to you, because you heard her say year 1, year 2, year 3. Can you hit on that? Just how did you know when you were trusted? When did you get to that point?
So I want to say, because again, I think the best way to be journalism is about being real and being truthful and being transparent. And what Miss Dorothy said about how you're not supposed to be that reporter who's like, oh, ain't nothing for me. I used to do that all the time. I'd be like, I'm hearing, I don't know what y'all want me to do. Because I would suck at pitching. So I didn't have any good stories to pitch. So then they would just go send me on stuff. When I was in MMJ, I was in Columbia, South Carolina. Again, I did not go to J school. I went to Florida State University, which had 2 journalism classes, and I just lucked out. I never had an internship at a real TV station. I interned in Westcott Building in the basement of it because it was a PR show for the school, but I got to do reports. And then I went to FAMU J school for my minor, and I sucked. I mean, sucked hard. It was bad. I cannot believe I got out of there and passed things. So that's my foundation, which wasn't very strong. So then I get this job out of college, like right out of college, and I'm in Market 77, which is a lot better than a lot of kids who get out of college. And again, I don't know how to pitch. I don't know none of that stuff. They used to pick our stories in college, and we'd just go and do them. So that was foreign to me. So then I didn't know what I was enterprising. I'd go out there and be like, yeah, no, what y'all wanted, it ain't out here. But I did a class with Boyd Hooper, and it was like one of the best things I've heard. Boyd Hooper is also the GOAT. He was talking about that he would go to scenes and kind of pick like things that you wouldn't think of. So like one story he did about a World War II vet, and the whole focus, because World War II vets have or maybe it was Vietnam vet, I don't know, but older vets have a very big thing about being humble, and they don't want to talk about their accomplishments, even when they're being honored. So he focused the story on his 2 grandchildren who were super excited for their grandpa to get this medal. And one time he did something about a tornado or like an earthquake or something, and you can't film an earthquake, that doesn't exist. And at this point in time, it was an older story. There's no Ring cameras. So he went there and talked about how quiet it was, and they like did gnats of the wind, but then talked to other people. Like where there's a will, there's a way. And at least if you don't get the story you talked about at the meeting, at least you can say, hey, this is what I have. I know it's not ideal, but I did make a story around it. Are y'all still interested? And they may say, yeah, let's run that. Or they could say, nah, just make it a bow sock. Whatever happens, at least you tried.
At least you brought something.
And it's interesting, Jasmine, you talk about, having what happened to you in the beginning. I mean, I hear you guys, let me tell you, the reason I am where I am, the reason that I learned these lessons, because I got fired from the first job. Because like you, I sucked. I was bad. And right out of college, had done one story in my life on television when I interned somewhere, and then I got the job. So here I am, just kind of, learning by the seat of my pants. And, after a year, they were like, no, you ain't got it. And I literally sat there for 3 weeks when I didn't have anything to do going, okay, what did you do wrong? And what are the lessons here that you can learn? And I went over all the stories, my attitude, my relationships, and it was kind of like, this is not going to happen again. So the next city I went to, one of the things I learned is that it is important for you to build a relationship with the community. Mm-hmm. And that first story in Peoria, I got up, I went to work. Ooh, attitude. I hated it. I so hated Peoria. And so it was such a struggle. I'm sorry. So what I learned, was that you have to make sure that you meet people at church, and you go to the grocery store, and you join the community this, and you attend this, and you attend that, because that's where you're going to get some story ideas from. That's where you're going to build a community, So that was a hard lesson. So Jasmine, you learned that lesson too. And sometimes what happens when you learn those kind of lessons, you're a better person for it.
You're a better person. Amber, I'm going to touch on the thing that we previously talked about, because that literally dovetails right into it. You only get better and learn your community the longer you're there. We've all had that moment in our first job, our first market, where you want to jump off the ledge. You were like, I'm done. I don't want to be journalist. I don't get holidays. I don't get paid. I'm ripped and run.
You quit several times in your head.
I'm done. You're out. You're like, I'm out of here, bro. And I know, like, I've recently learned, because I have friends with mentees now, because we're at that age, where their mentees are trying to jump ship off the first year. Yeah. And like, oh, I'm trying to go to a mid-sized market. I'm trying to go back home to Atlanta. And I'm like, Atlanta will chew you up and spit you out, baby. It's not, you don't want to go to Atlanta, not at the caliber you're at right now. And that's being real with people. There are some phenoms out of college who have gone to big markets, phenomenal. So they are outliers. The rest of us in this like middle section, you probably won't get as good as you could be until about year 2. And I signed a 3-year contract in Columbia and I hated it. I hated it. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I got way more opportunities. I was anchoring, I think 6 or 8 months in for the holidays. I went from doing 0 live shots to doing 3 every weekend. It gave me opportunities to get out there and get better. And the longer you're there, the better you will get, but you're not going to be good off year 1 unless you are just a freaking phenom. More than likely, you need at least 2 years. If you want to be even more of a bad butt, probably 3. I think by 3, you're almost a pro. You know where to go, you know who to talk to, because here's the thing, when you're out of college, you're 22, you don't know what property taxes are. You don't know what the supervisor of elections does. You're like dumb. You're adult dumb because you've been living in a bubble your entire time. The only way to get that knowledge is to like really go out. And the pandemic has made it even easier because now there's Facebook groups for everything. There's Zoom for everything. Look at your beat sheet, call some people, and make some meetings or make some Zoom meetings in this case right now. There's really no excuse at this point because of technology. If Madam President was doing this and other people who are, our OGs were doing this with no technology, we have no excuse now.
No excuse. Hey, Brooke, do you want to add on to that trust piece? Like when did you realize your pitches were trusted? And then we'll jump into this Q&A.
When I trust them myself, I think that's really touches back to kind of what I said, what I struggled with and how I feel like I got more comfortable. It's really if you actually believe it yourself, because then it's stronger, and you have to, like what Dorothy said initially, you have to be well researched. You have to know who this is going to affect, why this is important. And if you know all of that and you actually believe it and you're not just simply pitching because you got to pitch something, you have to say something, then that's when it really starts with you being honest with yourself.
Yeah, I got real honest with myself this year. It was probably only the last 6 months where I really trusted myself. And then I just laid out those 3 things that we talked about earlier. This, and this. What y'all got? What y'all good? So, all right. So these questions, we have a couple really good ones. So I assume that I hit answer live and it pops up. I'm afraid to hit it, but we're about to do this.
Let's test it out.
So Ty has this 2-part question. How do you find the balance between pitching a story that works for your newsroom when your newsroom isn't consistent with the story ideas they gravitate to? I don't know why that resonated with my soul. And then his other part is if they're interested in it one day and then the next day they don't seem interested, do you repitch it? Man, that happens.
Oh no, I think
Amber froze, right?
Okay. All right.
Oh, did something happen?
I'm gonna pinch it. Shalitha, I think you should be the one to talk about that because you're a producer. You're the one we actually have to pitch to.
So, second part of the question, the inconsistency. It happens. It happens. That's all I can say. It happens day to day. Whatever is the big story of the day. It can, what are we leaning towards? What are we gravitating towards today? I would say if you have a good story and we're leaning towards it on Monday, but Tuesday you pitch it and it's like, keep that story. Keep it because there is a reason why we liked it in the beginning, and there is a reason why we probably don't like it today. Again, what is happening that day? Is there, big coverage that we have to cover? And this is, our must covers, and this just doesn't fit in the newscast. So I say don't get discouraged with that. Repitch it and ask a producer, like, okay, so what was it today? Pull somebody to the side. What was it, that we didn't like it today? Why, what else do I need? And they can kind of probably guide you or tell you that it's not your story. It's not, we just have some must covers that we have to hit, and this just doesn't fit. So keep it for tomorrow. Keep it in your back pocket, as we like to say. But yeah, it is what it is, especially in the wake of COVID. There are certain stories that we get to cover all the time. In the wake of, protests, some days you just have to adjust, and it is what it is.
Can I add something? Because I know this is over at noon, and there's an important question in the chat.
Yes.
And so we want to share, what are the best research databases and resources that you utilize at work? Let me just give you guys 3 or 4 of them. Elections are coming up. I put this in the Black Women on TV. Election SOS. Election SOS. They have a link that they literally tell you all the stories that are going on around the country, and they even give pitches of the kinds of stories that you should be doing before and after elections. So just Google that, Elections SOS. The Pointer Institute, sign up for their newsletter. Again, all of this is all free. You go to the Pointer. Pointer has a newsletter that they send out, and every day they say, these are the headlines, and then they even break down just how you as a reporter should be analyzing this, kind of that behind the scenes stuff, the questions you need to ask, what you should be looking for. Solutions Journalism is a third one. Solutions Journalism, that is another organization where they will just take the best of stories from around the country and show how that particular story came up with the solution, so that when you do a story, you present the problem and then you present a solution to it. Sometimes the solution is saying that in this city, there's an issue, there's a problem, but in Denver, they have solved that problem. This is how they're doing it in Denver. So Solutions Journalism is another place to go. If you're not a member of IRE, that is one way, but you have to join that one. But the Ida B. Wells, our own Black group, go to their website, look at what they're doing. And so those are some resources that you can use that will help you out.
Oh, Jasmine, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Brooke. You want to go first?
No.
Thank you. I was going to say, with the pitching for producers. Okay, so I was not trusted in my first job, as I told y'all. When I got to the newsroom on the first day, I didn't even have a computer. I had to bring my own little laptop and make stuff happen. And also because they didn't trust me, I was on the low man on the totem pole. I worked the desk. I was a producer, and I was an NABJ, like whenever they needed me. Now, why they would let the person who can't do math be out their time, and I have no idea. But what every show has its own nationwide thing. Like some stations do have like a, we're working for you, taking action for you, or like other things like that. But every show has a feel. And I feel like because reporters are in the micro and producers are in the macro, we don't see eye to eye sometimes. So I think what you should do on your like day off, or like, maybe you just have like some extra time before you get out of there, look in the rundowns and see what your producers are putting in there, like other stories, national, local, whatever, or sit and talk to the producers if you have a good relationship with them and see what they like. Like, for example, some of our midday shows are more consumer. So they love doing, we have a reporter named Jackie Calloway who always is taking action for you stories, getting people their money back, righting wrongs, that kind of stuff. Mornings, all utility. What's going to get you out the door faster? What's going to make it easier for your kids who are at school? What's some quick ways you can, make dinner tonight? What are the cheapest ways to do Christmas shopping? Like those are stories that work for the mornings. And then like 6 and 11, hard hitting. We want numbers, stats, keeping people accountable. So if you figure that out, you may be better to pitch, and you can get a producer on your side by pitching specifically to them. At our station, they literally have to pitch by the quarter hour. So they say this story is going to work for the top of the hour. This is a 45, meaning that it's like kind of like featurey. Like it's that specific. But I think when you know your story that well, your pitch is going to work, and you're not going to just throw stuff to the wall.
As far as resources, I would say, I think like top 3 things, the Post Most, outside of, because Pointer obviously is the big one, but Dorothy hit on a lot of them. I would say on the Washington Post website, sign up for the Post Most newsletter. Mm-hmm. Every morning they send you all their top stories and all different types of things. Like there's opinion section, there's top news sections. You wouldn't believe how many times they're actually in your city or in your state. And there are how many national stories, or even maybe an opinion piece that has different facts in it that actually matters to your community. A big thing I would say is Twitter. and not simply be on Twitter and chat with people, but for instance, follow your mayor and read all of the replies to what your mayor tweets. What are people talking about in your city? What affects them? People love to complain on Twitter. They love to, so it's not simply just following the big people in your city. It's looking at, you know, the average people in your community, how they respond to those things. What do people care about? And because Twitter is not real life, especially in your first job, pass your card out everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, literally everywhere you go. Give your card to everyone and make it clear that if they hear of anything or they think of anything, no matter how small, give me a call, shoot me a text. And I think those are my 3 good resources.
I ordered.
Oh, and Post Most. Is it? Yeah, Post Most. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Post Most, MOST, sorry.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that, and then somebody else also said a best place to enterprise stories or get those ideas. My mentor, Monica Pearson, told me barbershops, churches, the gym, and now Facebook groups. There's a Facebook group for everything. So I get and then that Nextdoor app, the neighborhood app.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's so many. I wanted to hit on this. It's kind of, I feel like it's on topic, but it's a very long post from an anonymous attendee. So let me summarize it in like 30 seconds. I guess they had a reporter who said George Floyd was shot, and we all know George Floyd was not shot. And it's like that's a big mess up. Like, and it must have been some cultural cluelessness. I don't know what to call this, but how do you hold those managers and talent accountable for big mess ups when it comes to our stories, or stories that?
I'm reading the question and it says the actual quote was at the hands of police, which we know is kind of like a euphemism.
But then they also said after after being shot by police, and we know that. Like they were just really wrong. Like,
yeah. That's
like, how do you hold people accountable? Because I know that's a touchy subject, but you can't get stuff like that wrong.
This sounds crazy, but like for a time, like with George Floyd, then it was, I can't even keep up with names. That's how bad it is. Like Black people die at the hands of police every day. And when that George Floyd thing happened, people who were getting shot by the police who happened to be Black were getting basically put up in the queue. So I could think it's an honest mistake, but that also goes to show that, like, I think the fatigue of police shootings is starting to wear on people to the point where it all just mixes together. I'm not saying that's an excuse. We do have to fact check people. And when you're wrong like that, you get called to the carpet, period. Because now this is a credibility issue. So when that kind of stuff happens, you have to call it out and quick. It's like but when we talk about being a voice in the newsroom and being trustworthy, you don't call people to the carpet in front of other people. You pull them aside. Nothing will burn you quicker than trying to be a boss and calling people to the carpet and then getting into arguments and things. So if that producer, whether you have a relationship with or not, a credibility issue is a credibility issue. Pull them to the side, not on email because tone can get misconstrued. Pull them to the side, talk in person with your mask on or socially distant, and say, hey, I just want to let you know that story, you said so-and-so was shot. Or that's not the right thing. So you need to make sure that you change that in your scripts in case people pull it over. Because that's the other thing. I've seen show after show after show have the same mistake because the person won't correct it in the actual show. And so to make sure that doesn't happen again, if they pull stuff, that needs to not only be corrected in our minds, but also in our scripts, because that's how like things just keep happening over and over again. If they, and I don't know why, because like I said, it's a factual thing. If they take issue with you bringing that up, that's sometimes when I'll go to a manager and be like, look, this is what happened. We can't have that happen no more. That's not good. And then they will be the ones. You don't be the one to be the manager. That's above your pay grade. You have your manager tell everybody else and send the whole Slack or the whole newsroom email like, hey, this was wrong and this needs to be addressed. Like I said, but that's only if you get pushback. I don't understand why you would get pushback about a factual issue.
And I'll say I had an example. Go, Brooke, and then I'll share an example.
I was just going to say, I think the idea of holding your manager accountable is a misstep. How to do that is maybe like not the best, most appropriate way to do things, but a simple fact error in the show, no matter how powerful, it is, everyone should be working together and having each other's back and willing to say, hey, that's not actually what happened. And so you don't have to think of it as like, oh my God, this is such a strike against all of us, as much as, oh, hey bud, that's not right, which, you know, comes back to, we are not the spokespeople for everyone. Everything doesn't personally affect us, but yeah, that's wrong. And we want to be right. So take the feelings out of it, I think I would say, and just be willing to be part of the team.
And I will say, as we wrap, one time I did have to say something to the entire newsroom because it was a glaring misstep. To summarize it, Chadwick Boseman was from here, and they had this event that they called a memorial. It was not his memorial, and people were mischaracterizing it. And then we got a statement from the family hours before the event where we could have called it earlier. I wasn't at work, and I'm not a producer. So we should have known from the tone of their email. I read it in Black girl tone because I knew it was coming from a Black family. This is not a memorial. It is a celebration of his impact. Like, they gave it a different term because they didn't want people calling what they did. It was a celebration of his life where they watched Black Panther. That's not a memorial.
Right.
And I had to tell them, we need to change these graphics because clearly the family says, this ain't it. This ain't his memorial. So just know when it's important enough that it might need to be an email to the whole newsroom so that we can fix it quick. But also knowing when it's an off camera, off to the side conversation. Any final thoughts, ladies? This has been great. I've been trying to catch up with all these questions. A lot of them will have to happen off after. But anything else?
I have a quick final thought, but I don't have to.
Final thoughts from everybody. We'll start with Brooke, and then we'll make it through. Okay,
super quick. It was just something that was kind of touched on earlier. You all were talking about police. I think a really good thing that we should do, and I also, this was kind of brought to my attention, it's explained very well in a Twitter thread by Wesley Lowry. And so we are not the police department's public relations department. And so the police are a resource in our community, just as so many other aspects are. But even in the smallest stories, we don't take these things as fact. This is what happened. We tell the truth. We don't take something someone else says as just immediate fact. And so I think that's really important and should start really, really small, is that just because you're able to get a press release from, you know, an official entity, we are still supposed to do the reporting. So I think that's a big thing that we're still failing at. We use police speak in a lot of our stories, and we say this is fact, and we use really confusing terms. And we should really be more focused on fact and telling the story in a way that is factual and makes sense. And we are no one's public relations department.
Shalitha?
Yes, so this has been great, ladies. So I've really enjoyed it with everyone. But I just wanted to add to the when things are wrong and speaking to your producer and, you know, all those things. It's so important to have that, again, go back to relationship with the producers and to make sure that even with your managers. I have been in a similar situation, Amber, where I've had to say, okay, this is not the tone of what this is. And you say it and people respect you because they understand, you know what you're talking about. And so it helps shift. So final words, build those relationships. If you are new to your city, make sure you are not afraid to ask someone who has been in this market for a while for help. That's super important. Building the relationships, asking for help, and just being, consistent. I can't say that enough. Consistency is important.
Jasmine, we'll end with Madam President.
Yeah, no, that's a good job. I'm sorry, I was trying to type all these questions. This is just like a freestyle last word thing. Okay, so the big thing was like, being a voice in the newsroom and like how to do that. I think especially like when you're young, it's really hard because you're having a really rough time. Like I said, unless you are a phenom, you're just like not happy. You're not happy, you're tired, you're fatigued, you suck at your job, you're getting yelled at all the time, people cussing at you in the newsroom. It's trash. But you always have to realize that you have to have a good attitude, because a good attitude can at least be like, well, that girl can't do a both side to save her life, but dang it, she's nice, so we'll give her a chance. So I feel like having an attitude, because I did not have a good attitude like earlier in the game, and the closer we would get to my contract being over, I would get more and more grumpier. So yeah, it was bad. Like I had to have a whole attitude adjustment, and it's taken 7 months of therapy and going, but that's real talk. Like you have to adjust your attitude. You can't always be on the cusp of leaving somewhere, because sometimes God will keep you in that place we're going to church. God will keep you in that place to like learn a lesson, and he won't let you leave until you've learned that lesson, whether that's professionally, spiritually, or mentally. So I think an attitude check is always a good to have. And like I said, it can get people on your side even when you're not necessarily in the right. Also, to be a better leader, learn what everybody does. Like I said, when I got in there, I was a low man on the totem pole, didn't even have a computer at my desk station. I was the desk person making calls. I was a producer, and I was a reporter, and I was an anchor. I was doing all of this stuff. And it helped me be a better journalist, because I knew the challenges that everyone had to face. So sometimes I think we get mad at our team, but it's just because we don't really know how they work, and we think we know how they operate. So I think that could take a lot of stress off you if you kind of know like the challenges that a producer faces, or the challenges that your anchor faces, or whatever, because you have a better understanding and you're less likely to get pissy with people. And again, like I said, I think attitude is the biggest thing that you can have on your side when you are looking for allies in the newsroom. Y'all ain't gotta go have brunch together. We don't have to like these people, but we do have to get along with them and work well with them. So that's that. And you don't want to, continue the trope of an angry Black woman. I hate it. I hate it. And you have a right to be angry. You have a right to rage. If you watch Lovecraft Country, you do have that right, but it's always a time and a place, and there's a way to tactfully do it when you have it.
And God will bring that problem back to your next job if you didn't address it the first time. But let's end with Madam President. Madam President, final word.
All right, I will keep it short. I just want you ladies to know there is power in the sisterhood. So the most important thing you need to remember is that there are a lot of women already in this group, in this organization, who are willing to help you, willing to listen to you, willing to guide you. And do not hesitate. You got some strong, beautiful Black women right here. And there are so many more that we are fortunate to have in NABJ. Do not hesitate to reach out.
Well, that's it. I thank y'all for being here. Thank you, ladies, for doing this. 3
Amber, you did a
great.
fabulous job. Really great job, Amber. Thank you so much for bringing us together.